Okay, hey Shawnee.
Hi.
So first, I just want you to say your name and your profession. Tell me a little bit about what you do
Okay.
as a person.
My name is Shawnee Bell. I am an art therapist and a licensed professional counselor. So I work with individual adults and we work through things like trauma, anxiety, depression, and just life transitions. So
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. So at first, I want to say thank you so much for doing the heart journaling with me. It was phenomenal. People still to this day ask me about it when I show them pictures and show them videos, and so I'm appreciative. So you came on as the art therapist and you introduced some concepts to me, and if you could just kind of explain that process for me.
Sure. So it's a process, or really a concept called composting. And of course, we probably know that as it applies to taking recycled items and composting them to replenish the earth. But it's a concept that can be applied to life as well, in that we can go through all kinds of things in our world and they may seem like failures or seem like things that just didn't work out, that don't have a lot of value or meaning, or just like broken dreams. And so whenever we have those, we might tend to try to minimize their presence in our life or push them over to the side, or they plague us and we carry them like heavy weights, rather than recognizing that what really happens is that when we pay attention to them, when we're curious about them, when we're prayerful about them, they can be broken down and for lessons and for gratitude and for all kinds of different things. You can find life in those supposed broken dreams, right? That doesn't take away from the fact that they hurt and that they were disappointing. So we're not trying to undo that or minimize that, but even with the hurt and the pain, there's still life and there's still hope and there's still learning to be found in those things. And so we just identify what those things are so that we can pull out the juice out of our experiences.
Thank you. So how do we take that whole idea and place it into art?
Right. So the way that we worked it when we did our workshop is we had different items that might represent some of the experiences that a person would have had. We also asked them to bring maybe things that represented that failure or broken dream, like old pictures or keepsakes. And we asked them to just sort of break them down and make a collage out of them. The way I like to do art therapy with intuitive things like that is that I ask that you don't overthink it, that you just kind of allow yourself to go through a process and arrange things in a way that feels right to you or that makes sense. You can be prayerful about it. You can just notice where that particular item seems to fit best, and then just allow yourself to go through that process. And then once it's done, start to be curious about it. If this thing that you've created were to tell you a story, what would the story be in this image that you've created? What stands out to you? What does this remind you of? Notice how things are placed together, and just be really curious with yourself and start to that's where your creative writing part comes in, and just start to just dialogue with yourself about it, and just maybe free associate and write about it, and you'll be amazed to see what kind of things might come out as you start to think about your journey in a different way.
Okay. So if someone wanted to use art therapy as a way of recovery, why would you suggest it?
As a way of recovery? Because oftentimes with trauma, the part of us that is able to make verbal sense out of things doesn't really kick in, right? And so sometimes the start of that journey can be images. Like they always use that adage, the picture is worth 1,000 words, because sometimes it's really hard to come up with words to describe what it is that you're experiencing. But a color or even a movement, because art therapy is not just about the outcome, the finished product, the image that you create, but it's also about your process, right? There's a strategy involved. There's a flow to it. And so just paying attention and noticing the energy that you exert while you're doing certain things. Ripping paper, all kinds of processes can really be sort of like a visceral healing process for people. It can help them arrange things in an unconscious way that then brings more conscious words to the forefront. It helps you really understand more about where you are in your journey. It helps you sort of organize, and I think that's what art therapy can really do. It's a starting place to start to organize all of these things that are going on at one time and sort of overwhelming you.
Thank you. All right. Well, last thing, I want everyone to have a way to reach you if they would like to go further with you with just art therapy. If you could look at the camera and let them know how they can contact you if they would like to secure your services.
Okay, so I currently work with the agency called the Resilience Center of Houston, and you can call them to set up an appointment if I have any openings at the time, hopefully. That number is 346-206-3992, or you can contact them at info@resiliencecenterhouston.com.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Whatever of that might be usable.
Don't film me the whole time.
Okay, go ahead.
No, but anyway, what I was saying is that when you go through something traumatic, I think in the Black culture, when we don't say something, we're actually trying to honor you and give you space, and we really don't know what to say. But it's really during that time that we don't need the space. We really need somebody to be around and to ask us how we're doing and just be there and sit with us and, you know, and just be in that quiet space with us. So.
How do you think events like heart journaling will help with these types of situations?
Well, I think heart journaling, for the most part, is the representation for Black women, taking the stigma off, not talking about it. So I think that this is a great place to finally break the silence and allow people that opportunity to grieve. And I believe that it's going to be awkward in the beginning because this is not what we do in our culture. We don't talk about anything, you know. Matter of fact, like I was saying, the more traumatic it is, the more quiet we get and the more distant that we become. And I think with this heart journaling on the loss of a child, whether it's through miscarriage, unfortunately some of our children have been murdered, and abortion, this is almost like, oh, you too? You know, I mean, it's kind of like, I think so much of this happens to so many of us on a more common level than we imagine, that we just kind of take it for granted. And if you, matter of fact, you hear a woman sit up and start talking about domestic violence, sexual assault, you're not gonna, in the Black community, you're not gonna see this. What? Really? People are just gonna be very, and let you talk, because they've gone through it too, and we don't know how to talk about it. So I think heart journaling is a good stop and a good start.